Today is World Press Freedom Day, and we begin our broadcast with something we here at Deutsche Welle are proud to announce. The Deutsche Welle Freedom of Speech Award. This year, the award highlights journalists who have been persecuted because of their reporting of the coronavirus pandemic. We're only naming 17 individuals, but they represent all those journalists, bloggers, and citizens around the world who have defied restrictions on press freedom to report on the coronavirus. Michelle Bachelet, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, paid tribute to this year's award winners and all journalists going about their trade without fear or favor.
I'm here to honor the courage of the journalists who, despite such attacks, speak up and continue to investigate and report critically without fear. I pay tribute to the courage of those who have been disappeared, arrested, or threatened for their work. My office and the United Nations will continue to stand up for their rights.
That's Michelle Bachelet, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. We have this closer look now at some of the journalists we're singling out this year for their courageous reporting.
Threatened, attacked, arrested. Press freedom was already a contentious and often dangerous issue in countries governed by repressive leaders such as China, Russia or Venezuela. Now the corona crisis is making it even more difficult for journalists to do their job. January 2020. These images were secretly shot by Chinese citizen journalist Fan Bing inside a hospital in Wuhan, the epicenter of the pandemic. His reports differ vastly from the image of the country portrayed on state television. A while ago, I saw 3 corpses here, he says on video. Now there are 8. Chen Qiushi, a lawyer, was the most prominent citizen journalist in Wuhan.
The virus is right in front of me. China's criminal prosecutors are behind me. I'm not afraid of death. Do you think I'm afraid of you, Communist Party of China?
It was to be Chen Qiushi's last video before he disappeared without a trace. Just like Fang Bin. His last footage shows police knocking at the door. In Russia, where press freedom is strictly curtailed, government-friendly media outlets have been spreading misinformation about the corona crisis. Independent journalists are feeling the pressure. Elena Milashina, an internationally renowned investigative journalist, received death threats after reporting on the coronavirus in Chechnya, allegedly from Chechen President Ramzan Kadyrov himself. The organization Reporters Without Borders has documented a record number of arbitrary acts of violence against reporters in Venezuela. Darvinson Rojas was detained by special forces for 12 days for reporting on COVID-19 on social media. In countries where press freedom is already under threat, the corona pandemic is making things even more difficult and more dangerous for journalists.
With me in the studio now is Peter Limbourg, DW's Director General. First off, welcome, sir. It's great to see you on the set.
Yeah, hi, Michael. Nice to see you.
I want to first start by asking you, why are we giving this award to so many people this year?
Because it's a worldwide phenomenon which we witnessed. The pandemic also it has an effect on freedom of press, freedom of expression, and I think this is something we should be very careful with. And so we decided not to name one single person, but to give tribute to all these journalists who are working in dangerous circumstances.
I imagine it would be difficult, given these circumstances and how aggressive journalists have to be around the world, particularly now, to single out a particular number.
Well, it is not easy, yes, but I think the list is not closed, so we can open the list up if we see one of these cases which are really, really bad. And I think we picked some which they stand for a lot of in our profession, and I think this is very, very. It's a sign. I mean, we hope that we can contribute something, especially for these people who are working in danger, but also for the whole good cause of freedom of expression and free press.
We saw in that piece 2 examples of how Chinese authorities may very well have quelled critical voices in that country. Is it your belief that if there was more open reporting in China, that there may very well have been an opportunity there to keep the pandemic much lower to prevent the spreading of it?
I think it's very likely that this would be the result of a free press in China, because you wouldn't have had the government trying to neglect any epidemic or pandemic at the beginning. You would have maybe now a result where this virus comes from. Still, it's not 100% clear where it comes from, and the Chinese Communist Party government authorities are trying to avoid any responsibility for this, and they're making an image of helping the world, but which is nice. It's good when they help. I like it, but they should also take the responsibility. And a free press would have really helped to find the reason, and at the end would have saved lives in China.
You're no doubt in contact with some of the prize winners. What are some of the sort of things that they're telling you?
I have one story which really impresses me. It was not an actual journalist, it was a CEO of a Jordan television station, a liberal television station, Faris Sayegh, and a young guy, very ambitious, very cool, and trying to help his people. And they've been reporting about the coronavirus, and they only quoted some guy from the street who was not happy with the government decisions, which were very strict. And for this, he, the CEO, and the head of news got arrested. They went into jail for a couple of days over Easter. And from now on, his station doesn't get any information about the coronavirus anymore from the government, from the Jordanian government, which I think is one of these cases where governments try to also bring down liberal, open-minded journalists or media houses. And I think this shouldn't be tolerated. And I really urge the Jordanian government to change their policy on this.
Talk to us about how regimes that are already known for silencing critical voices in their nations are using the pandemic as a means to tighten their grip.
Yeah, it's I think something which at the end they really use, because it gives them the opportunity to show that they're a strong man, that they have a strong state, and that journalists are in some kind of way are hindering them. So I think they're using the pandemic also to bring pressure on journalists. And we see this in China, we see it in Russia, in Turkey, in Iran, we see it around the globe, so that these countries which have a very problematic attitude on press freedom, they're using this now too.
DW's director, Peter Limbourg, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks talking to you, Michael.
My pleasure.